Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy MKS here, back in another video, and welcome to the fourth and final part of questions about Celtic supporters. I was struggling to think of the cover, but I thought I'd try and finish this tonight, and I normally like to do these in 4 parts. It used to be just 3, and then I turned 40 3 years ago, unfortunately. I thought I'd make it 4, so anyway. Finally back with part 4. So here goes. These are pointers number 31 to 40. Now, normally in part 4, nowadays I try and think of things like what I would like to have achieved in the future. I suppose in this case, getting answers from Celtic supporters on these questions, as many answers as possible from as many supporters as possible. Answering as many of these questions as possible would be pretty cool. So I hope people share the video, like the video, and all that kind of stuff. These videos, I'd really appreciate that. And any comments and answering these questions, answer or any other points you want to raise, or anything you want to comment, especially Celtic supporters. But as ever, all comments welcome, preferably on topic. Gosh, I do waffle, I know, sorry. Anyhow, here goes. So, number 31. I know I mentioned about how I am mad. Now, honestly, so I know I mentioned about how I know I asked about what good causes the club should support in Celtic supporters' views, but I wanted to ask more specific, like, do you think the club should fundraise for things like, specifically, giving my own sort of ideas, do you think the club should fundraise for business or tech hubs, centres and places people can go to, basically, whether you want to call them hubs or whatever you want to call them, for black and other minority people, or even people of Irish descent, especially with the club's roots, and or neurodiverse people. It's an idea I have, like, to support neurodivergent people, for neurodivergent, whichever one you want to use, for November, neurodiverse November, as I call it. And in October and December, I want to focus more specifically on dyslexics, and possibly people with, like, in December, like people with dyspraxia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia as well. Maybe not everyone knows what those conditions are, to be fair, but I'm sure. But anyway, I wonder if, to put it as simply as possible, whether you think that the club should fundraise for neurodivergent people to have places where they can go, where they can get funding, mentorship, teaching, training, and that kind of thing. I suppose that's what mentorship entails. And also maybe people from the Irish diaspora that live in Britain, for instance, and or members of the black and other minority ethnic communities, POC, people of colour, or members of the BAME community, black and minority ethnic or whatnot. So yeah, basically, I'd love to know what you think about that. So should the club, to put it as simply as possible, should the club, in your view, fundraise for such, for business and or tech hubs and training centres and places for people to have things to do, especially young people, to keep them out of trouble and keep them in a safe environment, and that kind of thing. Number 32, what would success look like for you for Celtic? I know, I was thinking, because, well, technically now it's a Monday, but it was a Sunday, so I was thinking success starts with SU, just like Sunday. But I was thinking of covering. Unfortunately, I thought the idea a bit too late, but as usual, but better late than never, as I say. I'm dyslexic, I need extra time, as I say. But what would success mean for you? I know I mentioned about I know I asked before, like, what are Celtic supporters' dreams and goals and ideals for the club and all that kind of thing, and more realistic goals and more dream-driven, bigger picture, higher level goals and higher ambitions or whatnot. What would success look like for you? And I suppose that's the same sort of thing. And how can the supporters help the club to be more successful? Like, could they invest in the club, have shares in the club, equity in the club, sponsor the club, or even donate to the club, which is like free money, so to speak, to benefit the club? I guess some supporters might not want to do that, but if they knew there was like a specific account, I have to think, what if the club had its own account where people knew, supporters knew that the money was going to go towards buying better players, investing in the academy system, developing the youth, and things like that. Would the supporters be happy to do that? That's another question, I suppose. Number 33, as I say, if the club had its own account, do you think the club should have, if it doesn't already do so, do you think the club should have its own account? And how could it be that the club guarantees or that any money in that account, that specific account, would go towards buying better players, developing the academies and the youth and all that kind of thing? So it'd be targeted in making sure that money is well spent on improving the squad. Number 34, do you think the club could do more and should do more, should do more to benefit people, like in Jamaica, which went through a terrible hurricane recently? It's probably still trying to recover from that. Hopefully nothing too bad will happen again, but could Celtic help to rebuild the club? I mentioned before, like, that could be a mutual benefit, because as the club helps people like in Jamaica, Caribbean, Africa, Asia, Latin America, and elsewhere, wherever it might be, that will help. I suppose that would help the club to look better with its PR as well. I do hope it does benefit people. I say obviously, I do dream it would help the people in Jamaica, but at the same time, I dream that it will mean that we get more supporters who would appreciate such. I'm sure they'd give back, and as their economy grows, as they recover, hopefully, all being well, God willing, Godspeed, being forgiven for their sins or whatever, hopefully they'll benefit the club back. So I'm pretty sure that was point number 34. But yeah, I'd love to know what you think about it. Again, am I being naive, or could and should the club have its own special account where they can say, we will use that money to buy better players, or at least some of that money, like at least 10% on buying better players, or at least 10% on the academies? I'd love for the club to reinvest any money it has into 10% into buying better players, 10% into youth academies. Also, number one would include player wages and like that, salaries and like that. About 10% to buying better players, 10% towards youth academies, 10% in towards supporters clubs, and in towards marketing and branding, and half of that going towards sports clubs and building the sports base around the world. But advertising, promoting itself, PR and all that kind of stuff as well, and that kind of thing. Maybe even having billboards and things like that, and advertising the club, and finding creative ways to promote the club overseas. And 10% towards academy development. So player development, academy development, youth development, all that kind of thing. Buying better players, the salaries and all that kind of thing, and then promoting the club with half of that money in terms of promoting the club, going towards the CSCs, building CSCs, Celtic sports clubs around the world, and 10% going towards charity. So the other 60% that's left will go towards investors, shareholders, equity holders, and that kind of thing. So, for instance, let's say the club had £1 billion. That would mean 100 million could go towards buying better players, including their wages and that kind of thing. 100 million in that case would go towards things like youth development, the academies. 100 million 50 million would go towards the promotion of the club, advertising on billboards, advertising on adverts on TV or whatever it might be, on YouTube or whatever, and basically just promote the club. And 50 million of that would go towards, in this case, let's say hypothetically, would go towards creating more CSCs, Celtic sports clubs, bars and whatnot, cafes and bars and whatever, where there could be Celtic supporters meeting up, and that would hopefully increase the supporter base. So I think that'll be a good investment to bring money back into the club, and 100 million will go towards charity, and then I guess that would mean 600 million or something like that would go towards going back into the shareholders in that case. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, moving on to number 35. Could you name any specific charities, causes, NGOs, or whatever the club should support. And I suppose I kind of asked this before, but in either part 2 or 3, I think, maybe even part 1. But what are some causes you think the club could support? Like, for instance, it could be Macmillan Cancer Relief, or if you don't trust Macmillan, if you say, "Oh, I don't think they give the money to the right charity, to actually helping people, it doesn't go to those in most need," or whatever, you could recommend a certain charity where you think it makes a genuine difference. Or if the club could actually fund research itself, or somehow fund scientists in Africa and Asia to find cures for illnesses and diseases, which I think would be pretty awesome, in my opinion. But do you agree with me? And I'd love to know which of my ideas you agreed with. Because I think I'm trying to ask you as a question, which of my ideas did you agree with, and did you disagree with, or whatever? And do you think I'm being naive with some ideas? Well, I suppose maybe they're questions, but some of them are my own thoughts. So, or even do you think some of my questions are naive, or whatever? Or do you think there's some method to the madness? I guess it'd be interesting to know. But yeah, I suppose, like, you could say, how do you think the club could help to tackle illnesses, diseases, and things like cancer, or whatever other illnesses, AIDS, or whatever it might be, HIV, or whatever, or even colds and flus, and preventing the next COVID, or things like that? How could the club maybe work on doing that kind of thing? I think it'd be awesome to support scientists in Asia and Africa, because as well as benefiting those developing nations, they could then help themselves with the rest of the world as well. But again, what do you think? Number 36, do you think Celtic supporters should get free? I don't know, free nuking. But anyway, on a serious note, yeah, so I'm sort of running out of questions, but so yeah, could the club do more to support people in developing nations, like Africa, African nations, African countries, Aboriginals, Torres and Straits Islanders, Maoris, and Australasia generally, Latin America, Asia, Native Americans, Indigenous people from across the Americas, people from Ireland, given the club's roots, that would be very cool, and struggle anti-imperial projects and things like that. Could the club do more on that, and if so, what could the club do? Number 37, how can the club connect with people around the world, and again expand all around the world? I'd love to know. Number 38, what do you think are some of the biggest areas of need, as I say, that the Celtic Foundation could support? Number 39, could and should the club be tax exempt? In my opinion, yes, but I'm being very naive. Some people might say that's not how it can happen, but I was wondering, like, if the club could do most of its work through the foundation, and given that the club does a lot for charity and was even founded as a charity and continues to do a lot for charity, most importantly. So yeah, was founded as a charity, has done a lot for charity and continues to do a lot for charity. I would love for the club to be tax exempt, but what do you think? Yeah, so that would be one of my biggest dreams. I think that would free up a lot of money for the club, rather than like investing in things like where the government wastes money, and things like wars, weapons trade, the weapons trade, military-industrial complex, and things like that. Instead, the club could spend money on those good causes I talked about. Like, they could even spend more on like tackling illnesses and diseases, water shortages, food shortages, and all sorts of things like that, as much as possible. So I think there's a lot better use of those. The question I was going to ask, I completely forgot. It's annoying again. It happened a few times, but oh yeah. Do you think Celtic supporters should boycott the military? That's one thing I would love for us to do, is boycott the military, i.e. by not joining it, and also by not funding it for like taxes. So instead, again, we could donate that money in taxes towards things that are going to make a genuinely positive difference to people around the world, including, like, say, for instance, not bombing Iraq, but actually helping them. And number 40, do you have any other thoughts, especially on Celtic itself? I hope you'll be as polite as possible, and hopefully on topic and hopefully polite. But as ever, love to take it on the chin if people are rude, and please feel free to post what you like. And I'd love for people to share the video, share these videos and like them and all that kind of thing, if people will be so kind. And I'm out. Peace and love.